You have citizens that are being killed, I firmly believe, inappropriately. That must stop. And if we have a district attorney who allows that kind of stuff to go on and does not effectively address that situation, not only do we not have justice, we've got an outlaw scenario going here. It's an outlaw climate, and that is really, really bad. It's Monday morning, and it's time for Talkin' Racine. Thanks for visiting with us here this morning. We got Mr. George Myers here on my left.
Morning.
Mr. Jim Spodek, our producer.
Morning.
And myself, Dr. Ken Jorgen, your host. Well, we got something to talk about that concerns everybody in this community, all the way out to the boundaries of Racine County. And what we want to talk about is the district attorney, Tricia Hanson, and what a problem she is for this community. If you've got a bad DA or somebody that's not effectively protecting the law and promoting law and order, you don't have any justice. The justice system in this community is corrupt. It's defunct. It's not working. And the person in charge up at the top is Tricia Hanson. Now, when she came in, she was pretty much handpicked and ushered in by the insiders in county government, city government, when former district attorney Rich Chipetta left in a sea of disgrace after he had gone home from a party a couple of winters ago, and he was so drunk that he ran over a utility pole, knocked down a street light or a traffic signal and a tree, ran home. The police came to his home because they recognized the license plate and traced it to him. And he lied to them and failed his sobriety test. And he was basically handled with kid gloves. That does not happen to the average citizen. In fact, it happens over and over where somebody that's connected to City Hall or to county government or to Tricia Hanson some way or another receives handling with kid gloves. But boy, other people really catch hell. And that is not a good justice system. It's inequitable, it's unfair, it's biased, it's prejudiced, it's racist. And she's at the head of it, and she needs to go. And there's a recall effort for her going on right now. And I personally am in support of it. And many other people are too. There's a lot of people who have signed a petition already. There are people circulating it throughout the county. I personally recommend that you sign it. Find somebody who has a petition and sign it. Circulate petitions on your own. This is a corrective action that the citizens need to take in this county. You guys agree, I'm sure.
Yep, I do.
Well, there are many reasons why we feel this way. It's not a personal vindictiveness that we have against Tricia Hanson. She was overheard early on in her career. I think it was before she was even elected. She would never prosecute a police officer. Never prosecute anybody that wears the blue and carries a badge. And she's held true to that, even though there have been law enforcement officers that have done things far more egregious than the average citizen, and they've been handled with kid gloves. Let off with misdemeanors when felony charges were appropriate, so on and so forth. We've got some examples. One example would be this Sergeant Stulo.
Yep.
Who just recently, it was in the paper the other day what the final disposition of his case was. And he ended up with, it was a minor...
Misdemeanor.
Misdemeanor.
Yep, misdemeanor and a demotion, I guess, at his job as a police officer from...
Sergeant to traffic investigator.
Right.
Yeah, right. Which is, why is he still on the force? My understanding is, people who know him say he's not a bad guy. But is he police officer material? I mean, we keep saying that we hold our members of the police force in a higher standard. And do we really? I don't think so. This is just one example. Of
now,
course, Rich Chippett is another example.
Right, but what he did was drunk driving, hit a parked car, and then fled from the parked car. Now, there were some injuries in the parked car, fled from it, was caught, and then taken into custody at that point to get a misdemeanor on a hit and run, really.
That's generally a felony
Yeah.
charge, at least.
Yeah, and now would that have happened, would a misdemeanor charge happen to any this local citizen that had no connections? Now, one of the things that kind of came up there was his attorney was Pat Cafferty. Pat Cafferty happens to be on the Fire and Police Commission also. So this conflict of interest, oh yeah, you didn't represent him. Well, he still has that connection to the Fire and Police Commission. I don't care how it looks. If it has the appearance of a conflict, then it is a conflict. And that is well known in the legal realm. And that definitely has the appearance of a conflict, and it is a conflict. But this is the way it works here. So when we talk about Tricia Hanson, this is under her watch.
Yeah. Well, another deputy, a deputy on the Sheriff's Department, Chad Schulman, was caught red-handed stealing thousands of dollars off a deceased individual in cash. And what happened to him? His case finally ended up, he was charged with what?
His charge was, it was an ordinance citation for providing a pharmacy service without a pharmacist.
Where that came from, we have no clue.
No. Now, that came out, now Walworth County, apparently Waukesha did an investigation. Walworth County came out with this, he apparently lied. It was a letter from Walworth County, and I'm going to put it on the website. Stating that he's lied and there's some real discrepancies on what happened here, and there was a large amount of money missing from a deceased body.
And I just want to throw in something about these offenses and letting people go. It's not anti-cop to actually prosecute these people and at least take them off the force. Police, like you said earlier, Ken, are set to a higher standard. They're out enforcing the law. They're out telling us what we need to do and how we need to behave. So naturally, they're going to have to be a cut above the average person. And when somebody screws up and does something subnormal as a cop, he just doesn't belong in the force anymore. And I don't think that's anti-cop. I think that's pro-police and just saying, everybody that. What is wrong is if you let somebody stay on the force there, now you get associated, well, how many more policemen are there like that? That would be anti-cop, as opposed to just saying, you didn't meet the standard. That doesn't mean you can't be a decent human being. Doesn't mean you can't go get a job someplace. There's lots of people make errors like that. But at the same time, they aren't let go. And because of the type of work that you're doing, you just are no longer going to be able to qualify for this job. And I don't see a big thing with that.
No, I don't either. It creates resentment in the community, too. Well, if somebody with a similar charge or a lesser charge against them or a lesser offense that they've committed gets nailed to the wall and they see somebody in law enforcement or in government gets let off easy, that creates resentment, and it's obvious corruption, and people do not like being the victims of corruption, and that is what has been going on under Tricia Hanson's reign.
Right, and it brings down the whole concept of government. Right now, government's in a pretty, a lot of people just don't trust government anymore, and it's good reason. I mean, there's too much corruption going on in there, and we're just looking at one piece of it right here.
Here's another case right here. It's the Burmeister family.
Right.
2 people from the Burmeister family were killed. A man and a woman were on one of those 3-wheel motorcycles. They were making a turn, and somebody came up from behind them at a high rate of speed and slammed into the back end of them, threw them into the path of an oncoming vehicle, and they were both killed instantly. I mean, it was just a horrific, terrible crash and the death of 2 perfectly innocent people. And what happened to the person who hit them from behind like that? They were given a ticket for inattentive driving. And this was after some time where the Burmeister family was trying to figure out what is going on with this case. And then they ultimately find out that the guy is...
Well, actually, there was a letter written, and it'll be in this on the website. Now, this would have been the brother of one of the victims. He said the driver had only been issued a citation for inattentive driving. When I first contacted the DA's office, I was informed that the Sheriff's Department had not referred the case to them, and they recommended that I contact the Sheriff's Department directly. When I contacted the Sheriff's Department, I learned that they had been directed by the DAs not to refer to this case to the DA's office. The DA's office was dishonest with me, implying that that had been the Sheriff's Department that had the decision not to refer the case, when in fact it was the DA's office had made that decision. I then emailed the DA's office again and got no response. I have attached the email correspondence, and he goes on a little bit. I contacted the DA's office in the name of Phil's surviving 3 brothers looking for answers. She has, meaning Tricia Hanson, has refused to respond. As the only remaining brother who still lives in Racine, I felt my responsibility to try to get some answers. I have gotten none. I have only found that I have a district attorney who has long forgotten the duty to serve the public. Now that is almost criminal in and of itself. That family deserves some answers, and obviously they're not giving any answers. I find that.
Well, it's a question of justice.
Yeah.
You know, we're not talking about just following the law because it's the law. We're talking about what's right.
Exactly.
What kind of ameliorates this situation and gets everything settled down. And if you're not bringing about justice, you're going to have a problem in that society or community, wherever it is.
Correct.
Well, now you're going to end up with rebellion, and you're going to end up with all kinds of problems on the streets. And
Let's talk about following
justice.
the law and some of this unequal prosecution. There was a referendum in the city of Racine about marijuana possession cases, and it was overwhelmingly decided by the voters that anything under what I believe was 28 grams of marijuana should be considered basically a ticket. You get a ticket and you pay a small fine of, I don't know, it's like $100 maximum, I believe, and everything would be fine, you know. Well, the DA's office is still prosecuting low-level possession cases of marijuana at a state level
statute.
Statute, and which is much harsher than what the citizens of the city of Racine have requested and demanded, in fact, by voting. You know, I mean, this is something that is one of those things that people refer to as a victimless crime. Possessing a little bit of marijuana definitely falls into that category. I mean, it's been shown that historically the criminalization of marijuana possession is a bad idea. It was founded in racism, and it was founded in economic competition because certain industries wanted the hemp plant and its products off the market. So, I mean, it's an unfair law. People said, we don't want this enforced anymore. But that's still being enforced. That they're still going after. You know, somebody who runs into a pair of people and it results in their death, they get an inattentive driving ticket. But they still want to prosecute people for these low-level marijuana cases, which the citizens, again, have overwhelmingly said, we don't want that happening.
Which brings back this concept of justice. Yes, those people doing the marijuana thing are maybe breaking a law, but justice says, you know, and the community says, and the community is what decides what justice is, you know.
Right.
It's not, I mean, they used to hang horse thieves, you know, and we don't do that anymore.
Right.
You know, justice is a little different concept in the modern world. So the thing is that, you know, that's what the title of this pamphlet is, this thing you can see online. It's Campaign for Confident Justice, which is a good name for it. And that's all that people are looking for, I think. I don't look for retribution or anything like that.
This will be online. You'll be able to flip through it and read it. Yep. And it brings up, I don't know, 8 or 10 different incidents.
Racine.
You know, and one of the other
page.
things that was interesting, and I don't know if you've noticed it, I get the Milwaukee Journal, and there's full-page ads from Michael Bell, whose son was shot in Kenosha, I think 2004, and he's been doing some investigating as to what's happened in Kenosha County about the investigation on the investigation. But there were some things that he brought up, and he now is releasing some information on November the 5th, this coming November. But there was Tricia Hanson was given something from Kenosha, from the Racine County Sheriff's Department investigator, recommended 14 felony charges against Kenosha City Administrator Frank Pachetti and IT Director Tig Kirkman. in 2014. Trish
Now, these
Hanson,
are people in the government, right?
in the
Those
government,
IT, okay.
in the
Positioned
government, that
right.
they came up and said there was some emails missing, there was some information. I don't know the entire case, but the fact is that this was recommended by the Sheriff's Department, 14 felony charges. Nothing's been done. Trish Hanson got it in 2014. Nothing's been done. Michael Bell is still investigating this. I assume that there's something that's going to come up about this information, and Trish Hanson basically covering it up, not prosecuting. Why? No one seems to know. That's just another one.
Well, and here's a big one that we've been harping on for. This show is nearly 3 years old.
Yeah.
Machinery Row and the criminal enterprise that really was taking place down there has never been effectively investigated and prosecuted at all. It's cost taxpayers throughout the county, through the intergovernmental fund, several municipalities around Racine and the city of Racine taxpayers themselves, millions of dollars.
And that means Mount Pleasant, Caledonia, North Bay, Waterford, Burlington. I mean, all this is Racine County. All of that, and it's all monies that have been misappropriated, fraudulently dispensed.
Well, yeah, we don't really know whether or not some of it was actually stolen.
Yeah, that could possibly
definitely
have been.
deserves an investigation. How is Tricia Hanson involved? Well, she was given a complaint about this, a written complaint by a citizen of the city of Racine, almost, a year and a half ago? Nothing has been done about it. It's been bounced back and forth between the district attorney's office, the Racine Police Department, the Racine County Sheriff's Department. Nobody's doing anything, and it falls directly in the lap of Trish Hanson. So, this is somebody who is not serving the public interest, and once again,
I almost
if you
call
see
it
somebody asking for signatures,
When you get into this type of situation where people on the in get the breaks and the political enemies are the ones that get chased down and prosecuted, you're moving into what's called banana republic status, and those you think, okay, so what? So somebody gets away with something. If we go into that type of status, we're all going to pay for it, and I'm talking about right out of our pockets, because you look at the countries that go that way, and they are utterly destitute. They can't, population can't feed themselves anymore. So it's really important that we start looking at this type of thing. And when you start stretching over into Machinery Row and these other people that are in government and they're getting breaks, you're really breaching into some really, really dangerous territory. And it's just something we need to just get cleaned up.
well, and there's a couple that we haven't even mentioned yet that are really horrific. And that's the killing of Dante Shannon and the killing of Tyrese West by law enforcement agents, which we have very, very strong reason to believe were not effectively investigated and were not effectively prosecuted on the part of the district attorney's office. And I'm convinced that there's a lot more that's going to be coming out about that, and justice has not been served, and that cannot continue. We have citizens that are being killed, I firmly believe, inappropriately. That must stop. And if we have a district attorney who allows that kind of stuff to go on and does not effectively address that situation, not only do we not have justice, we've got an outlaw scenario going here. It's an outlaw climate, and that is really, really bad.
That's now you're hitting the bottom of the barrel there. When you do that.
Well,
that's right. No, I mean the police are well connected.
Yeah,
That becomes the way things operate, and then that's not the way you.
Well,
want to
you
go
lose
in a
confidence.
community.
Your community loses confidence, and
Right.
I think that's and I truly believe that.
And
When I've heard the numbers of signatures that are being collected, to me that's a barometer of loss of confidence in a community.
and when the government gets that separated from the constituency, now you've got a real serious problem, because when people lose confidence in the government, then all of a sudden things just kind of start going wild.
Yeah.
So it's important that those in government behave
Well,
properly.
and I heard something, George, where it was said, well, that's kind of a black thing, that recall. And it's certainly not a black thing. I know there's quite a few people that have signed that that are not black. But the fact is, if you want to try to, push that into that arena, I mean, that is only trying to escape the fact that there's so much other stuff out there that's not being addressed, and it should be addressed, and it needs to be put out to the general public that this is not being handled correctly, and it needs to be.
And when people can walk, we've talked a lot about Machinery Row in this program. If you've been following it all, there was a lot went on there that was very highly illegal and just full of corruption. And when those people can do that confidently and not worry about any consequences because they're well connected, you're on the precipice. So if we want to see Racine return to its greatness, there's a lot of things we need to do. But one of them certainly is we need to get the government straightened out so the corruption gets weeded out, and then we can get over into the nicer things. We start to deregulate and let the population, let those people within the population really grow and prosper and do their thing. That's a little further down the road though, because right now when there's so much favoritism and so much this type of thing going on in government, you're not going to get down to those nice things. You're going to constantly see attacks made upon scapegoats of some sort, and you're not going to see the community prosper and grow under these circumstances. It's just not going to happen.
So true. So true. Now I understand that there is some progress though in the Machinery Row case. Is that true?
Well, yes and no. I mean,
so this is not a dead issue.
No, not at all.
Yeah.
Absolutely not. I mean, obviously, I'm more like, let's move it along quicker. But yeah, there is some, I guess, investigation outside of law enforcement. Because if law enforcement can't do it, then I guess the citizens are going to have to take charge and do it.
So there are people that are working on this.
Absolutely.
Good.
Yes.
Good. That's good.
Yeah, there is. We're still in this country. The private citizen still has some ability to do something,
Right.
and it's looking really good.
Yeah.
What I've read of it so far.
If they're going to hold ordinary citizens responsible and guilty for possession of a small amount of marijuana, I think it's okay if the citizens hold the government responsible for the waste and fraud involved in the disappearance of millions of dollars and probably millions more. That isn't over yet by a long shot.
No, not at all. Not at all.
So, Tricia
that's
Hanson,
the good news.
Yeah. So, Tricia Hanson, let's see if we can make a change in the district attorney's office. And I'll tell you what, if we can accomplish that, then there's some other changes that need to take place down at City Hall, and we'll fill you in on more of that as time goes on. What else have we got here today that we want to discuss? You had a couple of things from the Journal-Times that you wanted to mention real quick.
Well, yeah, one of the things that I was surprised reading within the last couple of days is Racine's unemployment had gone up to 5%. Where
it was a headline when it went under 5%, right?
Well, yeah. I mean, it was
Big
like
deal.
following the trend. Now we're the trend in the country is to have lower and lower unemployment, greater and greater employment, and we are showing our ability to be impervious to success. So
I love that phrase.
Yeah, well, it's unfortunate, and the thing that the mayor talked about in his budget proposal, I've heard so many times over the years, and the things he's recommending to proceed forward, how he's going to pull this city out of its muck and mire that it's stuck in, is not worked. It hasn't worked for 35, 40 years, and until we actually start to do the things that are workable and are going to have some effect, are we going to shred this armor against success? Become once again a titan of industry. So it's there. I'm convinced it's there. It's just waiting to be unleashed, and this city can pull out of it. But it's not going to do it with all the favoritism and protecting vested interests and that type of thing.
Yeah.
It's not going to do it during that, and that's all I'm seeing in what's going on in the City Hall right now is you're hearing conventional wisdoms come out, and you're vested interests being protected, and let's all just do the right thing type of thing. No, you unleash it, and we can do something.
Thank you for being here. We appreciate you. Spread the word that Talkin' Racine is on every Monday morning. Thank you. We'll see you soon.